and Recreation for February 24th. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It looks like we have Mr. Sims and Ms. Agdello are not going to be here tonight. They're excused absences.
Here she comes.
Which one?
Webster.
Yeah, Miss Webster's coming in
All
now.
right, Ms. Webster will be here. Do you want to wait for roll then? Okay.
Oh, good. Oh, why don't you sit here? Thanks. Sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm sorry I'm late. It's rude.
Are we going to do the pledge then?
So you did the pledge.
roll call.
If we could do the roll call,
Yes.
please.
Ms. White,
Here.
Ms. Webster,
Here.
Mr. Renzi.
Here.
Mr. Denise. Here. Thank you.
Okay, so we have announcements. Mr. Sims cannot attend tonight's meeting. It's excused, and Mr. Agadello cannot attend, and he is excused also. I haven't been here in a while, so I don't remember what we got to do. We don't have any modifications.
No.
So we'll move on to approval of minutes. Everybody get a chance to look at those?
Yep.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Oh, batting cage project.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick update on this item, as it was something that was brought to the city from the board, and it was approved by the board to move forward with this project. Just an update, we started to run into a few delays with our contractors, so in order to not interfere at all with the Little League season, we pushed this project back to the summertime. We just didn't feel comfortable with taking the fencing down on the cage, having the netting installed, and not having the fence line connected from the third base dugout on field 4 and the first base dugout on field 3 to the fence pole. We didn't feel like we wouldn't have had that in time, and it just wouldn't have been safe, so we left it as is for now. It will be a summertime project along with the rest of the baseball softball field projects.
Excellent, that makes sense to me. So, anybody have anything to say about that?
Nope.
So we're on to public input. Public? No?
Okay.
New business. Integrated pest management plan for parks discussion.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. As you all are aware, the City Council imposed a 120-day moratorium banning the usage of herbicides and pesticides within city parks and properties. Based on input received from the integrated pest management workshops, a subcommittee was formed to develop an integrated pest management plan for our parks. This committee includes Kim Hagler, who's the environmental technician with the City of Sebastian. Thomas Carano is a Natural Resources Board member. Kathy Brothers is a Natural Resources Board member. Brian O'Neill is a Natural Resources Board member. Dr. Graham Cox is a scientific consultant. Christine Kelly Bagazzo is the Indian River County Extension Director for the University of Florida IFAS here in the county. And myself, we are the subcommittee members that are tasked with developing the integrated pest management plan for our parks. This subcommittee met beginning February 12th, and we will meet each Wednesday at 3 p.m. until the end of March to develop this plan. Included in your packet is a few of the slides that were shown in our kickoff presentation to the City Council on February 12th. The first is the IPM cycle that we will follow in our plan. This plan begins with inspection and monitoring of pests, then identifying the pests. Once we identify them, we will then plan our method of either eliminating or reducing the pest to an acceptable threshold. We will then implement one of 4 strategies: biological control, cultural control, mechanical control, or chemical control. The method used will be recorded and tracked to evaluate its effectiveness. If it is not effective, we then go back to planning and try another method. So that's just a quick little rundown of how the IPM cycle will go. We've got to develop it from pretty much the infancy. We've got some resources that we can utilize, that we can pull a little bit of details for this plan from. However, a lot of them are in other parts of the country. There are some here in Florida, so we are utilizing those to develop our plan as well. So what exactly is a pest when we talk about this integrated pest management plan? Pests are any species that is found to be undesirable. Pests differ depending on the area you're looking at. Many of the weeds that are identified as pests for Barber Street Sports Complex are not labeled as pests in any of our other parks. That's just one example of how they can differ depending on the park that we're looking at. Pests that have been identified within our park system currently include fire ants, sod webworms, mole crickets, grubs, moles, cutworms, mice, Japanese beetle grubs, broadleaf weeds, signal grass, torpedo grass, goosegrass, dollarweed, sedgegrass, crabgrass, and pennywort. A lot of these towards the end were all weeds that a lot of people don't look at as pests, but when you're talking about an athletic turf, they can quickly get out of control if we're not managing them, and it starts to take over. The turf that we have at our sports complex is Bermuda grass, and it's very susceptible to, once weeds start to populate, to the weeds then taking over. It's not strong to hold it out once it starts to get in there. So it happens pretty quickly. We're starting to see some signs. The football field has quite a few areas. And so we are starting to see some signage here now that we're getting into the beginning of spring, where the weeds will really start to take off and affect the playing surfaces. So the last slide, or one of the last slides that I've got in your packet, is we've separated our parks into different classifications so that we can identify specific pests for each classification and better identify which methods we should use. Your packet contains a list of the parks and their classifications for your reference. This subcommittee's plan is to present an integrated pest management plan to the City Council on April 8th for their review. Feel free to attend any of the subcommittee meetings every Wednesday at 3 p.m. We meet here upstairs in the conference room at City Hall. You can come right up front to the front area here in City Hall, and they'll get you access to the second floor. Or attend the City Council meetings, which we have one coming up this Wednesday, and then the next one will not be until March 26th, I believe it is. The committee did take a walk around Barber Street Athletic Complex and Friendship Park Athletic Field last week to identify the pests and hear from our certified applicators on exactly their process to maintain the fields. I felt that process was important. Whenever you start to talk about or spraying or applying granular products by a spreader, a lot of misinformation gets put out there. So I felt it was important for this committee to come out and speak with our staff. Our staff takes a very different approach when we look at these things. They don't want to be out there broadcasting spraying that frequently either. So what they basically do is, I've got 2 certified applicators there at Barber Street every single day. They see the field conditions every single day. They don't plan out a month ahead. They see what's happening, and then they make their plan based on that. Their plan at that point can be altered based on weather. A lot of any times that they're doing applications is usually either late at night or early in the morning before the sun really starts to come up, because you don't have as much wind. Anything over 5 miles an hour, and we absolutely do not apply anything. That's just based on our principles and how our staff does it. Anytime they apply any products, it's always by the label. The label is the law. We're required to follow that label. All the applicators are. So, when we look at it, there are times where they may apply products in the past, and as I said, we're on a 120-day moratorium, so they haven't done it recently. but products could have been applied every 6-8 weeks. Typically, from their charts that we've seen, nothing was applied within 4-month or 4-week increments, which typically, whenever you have large outbreaks, that's what the label calls for. However, we stay away from that. We don't do that. We want to follow based on the conditions that we're seeing in the field, and then we follow the label for the correct amount that we apply within our parks. So that's kind of a little short rundown of the integrated pest management plan, how we're moving forward. Each one of the committee members has been assigned 4 pests individually, and those committee members, the staff was not assigned a pest. We're letting committee members kind of drive this a little bit so that we get their input from the biological, cultural, mechanical, and chemical control aspects, so that they have full openness within the plan. We had the discussion at our last meeting that our goal at the end of this plan is to have every single person on this committee agree 100% with the plan that we're presenting to council. And I feel like we can get there. We've had some discussions on how we're going to move into this. I think differentiating the parks is going to help us quite a bit, because when you look at our passive parks, you know, none of the weeds that we identified are pests in passive parks. A good majority of those weeds are not pests in active parks. So then, you know, Barber Street and then Friendship Park, the athletic field back there, those are areas where those weeds can be considered pests because of the athletic turf surfaces. But then when you get to fire ants and mole crickets and some of those things, they can be pests in some parks, but I think, you know, one of our major concerns in most of our parks is fire ants when we get to those passive parks, because they're the ones that can cause damage to kids or anyone walking through the park per se. So that's a little bit of a rundown. If you all have any questions about this item or any questions about the subcommittee, I'm here to answer them.
Have you been able to do anything with the fire ants, or you just had to totally stop?
So right now we were given the okay to treat the fire ants at Friendship Park. We came to a point where we had to shut that athletic field down. We had a few community user groups that were using the facility, and at that time I deemed it as unsafe, and I had a couple staff members walk the field with me as well. We were in the range of somewhere in 80 or more fire ant hills that were in that baseball field back here behind the tennis courts. And at that point I just felt it wasn't really possible to even kick a soccer ball and not hit a fire ant hill. So when we made that decision, we shut that park down. The city council did give us permission to treat that park. We did treat it with Advion fire ant bait. It's a bait that is used, and so I would say I've walked it a couple times since then. We need to come back and spot treat, but we don't need to broadcast, because I feel like we got the fire ants under control. Now we just go back and do the spot treatments, and I feel like it'd be highly effective with basically eliminating them from that facility. But as far as the other parks, we were not given permission to do anything anywhere else. So
Brian, in other words, you won't be using herbicides or pesticides in the future anymore?
So I'm not going to state that. You know, it's this IPM process. If you look at it, you know, one of the last steps in it is chemical control.
Yeah.
And so when you label herbicides and pesticides, even organic products are labeled as pesticides. So we will be using pesticides in some form going forward. I just, you know, at this point, I can't state what the committee is going to come up with their solutions. There will be a pesticide list within that IPM process for our parks, yes.
So what you are using now, what kind of results are you having?
Are you speaking in reference to what we used before the 120 days, or
No.
what we're
Have you
using?
used any kind of a chemical since the herbicide and pesticides have been banned?
We have not been allowed to.
Nothing.
No, sir. Yeah, we've not been allowed to do any test products or anything like that. As far as our parks go, we did do a test, but this was back before the moratorium hit. It was on a non-selective herbicide, which that was when, you know, the plan was we were trying to eliminate the use of glyphosate, which is Roundup. So we had found a product called Ecomite Wow. We did a test project with that right side by side with Roundup glyphosate. And the Ecomite Wow product was really successful. So when we came to the November meeting, we were ready to present those findings, and that's when we were given the moratorium on all pesticides and herbicides. That's not something that, we had really anticipated at that time. So we were ready to eliminate glyphosate. We don't need to use it anymore. We have a product we feel in our test areas and would work in our parks. I can't speak that it works in the waters and waterway and aquatics, our canals. It hasn't been tested there yet. But in our test location, it worked just as good, if not better, than Roundup did in our test location. But that's a non-selective, so that's what we would treat ball field fences, areas where you want nothing, even the grass, because it's going to kill the grass. So that non-selective is going to do that. In our ball fields, we typically stick with selective because we don't want it to kill the Bermuda. So we want it to specifically target the weeds that we're going after.
When is the 120 days, when are we looking at that being over? And
It's coming up the end of March. So I think like March 26th council meeting will be somewhere around 120 days. Our plan is currently to present this integrated pest management plan at the April 8th meeting. And the reason is simple on that, even with us pushing it to the April 8th meeting, it's very aggressive to develop this plan in about 6 weeks, because every council meeting, we have to have our full agenda packets in the full week before. So it cuts us off a full week. So in order to meet the March 26th, we would have had to have it prepared and ready to go by March 18th, 19th, somewhere in there. So, as a staff and speaking with the committee, it's really aggressive to even have it done by April 8th, but we're pushing as hard as we can. And staff is on the kind of back end. We're trying to collaborate and put everything together that we're hearing in the meetings. And so we can present it to the subcommittee and make sure that everything we're showing in our plan is exactly what they're portraying that they're in their findings.
can I also ask why Easy Street is a passive and not an active park?
So what basically we did is it's considered a passive park because it's typically walking there, and there is a playground there. So the playground element would be evaluated for pests on a frequent basis in passive parks. However, we considered it a passive park just from the nature of it, a lot of people walking. They walk around the sidewalk. It doesn't have a large grass field area. Was the way we addressed it and looked at it.
Yeah, because kids don't stay on sidewalks. They're out there not supposed to be fishing, but they're fishing and they're running along the sides. And so that's why I'm kind of wondering, because I walked it the last couple days and the fire ants are right on the sidewalk edges. So even if they stay on the sidewalks, if they go off of them at all, and there are a lot of people, you're right, on the sidewalks, but they're also crisscrossing on grass too.
Okay, we can look at reevaluating that park.
Okay.
Just to give you an example, the reason I differentiated Hardy Park and Easy Street Park is because Hardy Park has the big field in the center area where I know a lot of people exercise and do things. So that's where I differentiated it from. But we can go back and look at Easy Street and look at putting it as an active park as well.
Yeah, because the fire ants are pretty active all along the sidewalk edges. All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, so we're at staff matters.
All right, so at each meeting, I try to give you all an update on where we're currently at with our projects. The park signage project, we are currently awaiting new samples from the manufacturer that will show the final design we chose. The project manager we were working with this company has decided to go out on his own venture and start his own business. So it slowed our timeline down a little bit, to be quite honest. But we have spoken with our new project manager. She's fully on board. She knows that we're ready to get going on this because we had discussed, speeding this process up quite a bit with the former project manager. But what we did ask them at our last meeting was to develop an epoxy rope that we could put on the poles for the signs, as we had discussed at our last in the December meeting. When I showed you all the samples, someone, a couple of you had said, we really like the rope look. So we've got them develop an epoxy rope that will have the exact same rope look that we saw that was actual rope. And they're planning to come back to us with that going forward at hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And we asked them to give us a mini version of a full-scale sign so that we could see the entire thing put together, not just on paper, to see the actual sign going forward. So, like I said, I anticipate to have that in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so we can let you all see that at the next meeting, as long as we have it in by then. Baseball and softball field projects, all of these items have been moved to the summer. Like, as I mentioned, we had an issue with the fence contractor that we were discussing with, and I had a hard time taking any fencing down and not being guaranteed that it was going to be ready to go before Little League season started. So what we decided at the end was, let's just push it back to the summertime, and we'll have more time, and we'll have everything ready to go by then. A lot of these projects, you got to remember, we can't really get started on them until October 1st. And then once October 1st comes, we have some that are immediate need right then that we jump on first, and then the other ones follow through. So now we're in the stage where we know we can go ahead and plan for the summer. We know the funds are there, and we'll go ahead and have that plan ready to kick off in the summertime. Pickleball. So we are working to finalize a grand opening date. I can state that. As soon as it is finalized, hopefully in the next day or so, we thought we had a date today, and we got thrown for a little bit of a curveball. But the date will be within the next couple weeks, once we have it finalized, with ensuring that, members can attend and everything's set. We're ready to go. We've got our certification from DEP came in, got the email this weekend, and got the final paperwork today. We've got couple things from the county that have to be checked off on, and a couple small items in the parking lot that are supposed to be taken care of tomorrow and Wednesday. As long as all that goes as planned, I anticipate announcing a grand opening within the next day or so.
And then you'll let us know when?
Yes, as soon as I know it, you'll get an email or a phone call from me announcing the date and the time.
Can I ask about lighting? Whatever happened with coins?
Yep. So I addressed, I had a conversation with the city manager regarding your concerns. Our plan is still to go forward with the coin-operated lighting system. I know there were some questions about the contract that we had signed with the airport. The reason you haven't gotten a copy of it is because it is currently being reviewed by our new city attorney, and it's some things have changed as far as some of the specifics within the contract. Once that's finalized, I'll send it out to all of you so you get a copy of it and you can see exactly what is said in that contract. Once again, that is an FAA requirement. The airport gets a lot of grant funds and federal funding and stuff, and so we are required, the golf course is required to pay rent to the airport on an annual basis. So it's not just specific to pickleball, the golf course is required to as well. So any lands that are airport property that are rented for additional usage has to pay rent to the airport.
Did you say coin-operated lights?
It'll be a token operated. Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Like a washer or something?
Right.
Yeah, so the plan is to have token machines that'll operate the lights. You'll be able to put your token in and you'll get an hour of usage out of the lights. The current plan is that you'll purchase the tokens from the golf course shop. So you'd have to plan ahead. You can't just show up, at nighttime to play at the courts because the golf course is going to be closed. So people are going to have to plan ahead, go and purchase their coins or their tokens, and they'll have them for the token machines going forward.
And what's the cost on something like that? Do you guys know?
We have not made a final determination on the cost. We had discussed somewhere in the $2 to $5 range for an hour. So that's just been our general discussion. Nothing's been finalized yet.
Okay.
Well, with this summer, when the time change comes, you won't need lights anyway.
Yeah, that's
So it's
correct.
only
I
a
mean,
short
we're getting
time.
ready to go into the time change here shortly. I
Yeah.
think in less than a month here will be, the time will be changing. So we will go through a long period where you really don't need the lights. But our lights, we are working with the contractor now. I anticipate those going up somewhere in the next 4 to 6 months. We'll have the light portion completed.
Sorry, John.
John, you want to say?
I assume, and it might be an unfair question, because this might have started before you were here, but we had no other place to put these pickleball courts except on the property of the airport, or is this just part of helping the airport survive?
No, I'll state this. I mean, the decision had been made before I got here last December. I
Okay,
will
then
state
it's
that.
unfair to ask you that.
But no, I can give you a little bit of the history. I do know that it was looked at to do it back here at Friendship Park. There were concerns over parking, and there were concerns over the number of courts that we could fit back there for the price that it was going to cost. So those were a couple concerns at Friendship Park. As far as other locations, I think we just run into the size of it and having to and being able to have 8 courts and a parking lot. It takes up, it's about 1.3 acres that we have at the current site. So it takes, a decent amount of space to do this project. And if we were to have done it in the back, there were concerns about the parking and what was going to happen there.
I'm just concerned about paying $1,200 a month and not knowing, the future of pickleball seems to be great. But the people that are doing this, I mean, are we going to have a certified, I hate to ask this because I don't believe anybody could or should teach you, but are we going to have a certified pro? Are we going to have the facility registered like most of the facilities in cities around this country? I forget how many thousands there are, but we're paying this rent every month. It seems like we should be looking into having a real facility. And like I said, that disturbs me to say that because I'm not a fan of this, but either we do something and do it right and go full stream, or let's avoid it. And
So I will say,
$1,200 a month is killing me.
I will say this about the cost. I think you'll see the number is going to be changing. I don't want to discuss exactly because nothing's been finalized yet, but I do think that number is going to be changing a little bit, and not going up, coming down. But also you got to, we're going to start off with no rentals. It's only going to be open for public play. However, we do anticipate starting to get requests for lessons and people wanting to rent courts to have a specified court. So, our discussion has been that 2 courts that are the farthest ones away from the parking lot, we could look at in the future developing a policy where someone could come in and give lessons, but they're going to have to rent the courts from the city. Someone can come in and rent and reserve a court, but they're going to have to pay the city to do that because we don't want to take the public access away. So we don't want to turn into some of the other pickleball facilities where they're charging a membership fee and stuff like that. We want free public access, but if you want to take that extra step and you want to be trained or you want to reserve a court because you have 3 people coming from the West Coast over here and you want to be able to play for 2 hours instead of 1 hour, we are going to have that opportunity. So that will be a revenue stream that comes in. And we will be able to maintain that and kind of see it from a staffing level. We won't have staff on site. We are going to have eyes in the sky. So we will be able to see what's happening out there. And we will be able to know, you clearly know if someone's training someone and in that essence. So that will be coming in the future. It's not something we're starting off with right away. And the reason being simple is we anticipate the usage being there from the general public, and we want to see when the heaviest use times are, because we will not during those times allow people to rent the courts during those times, per se.
I apologize because I was going to bring issues of Florida Tennis Magazine here, not to read my articles, but there's a whole section on pickleball, and there's tournaments going on all over the place, and the community's going to want that too. And it's going to take somebody that knows how to, and before they, whatever kind of authorization they give, forgive me, but to run it, we're going to need somebody that is authorized by the associations to do that. I don't know, I just hope we didn't bite off more than we...
We've heard for the last few years that there's a real need for it, and I believe that because no matter, anytime I'm going down Schumann, there's always pickleball going on. My question was, once this opens up, are we not doing pickleball at the Schumann courts, or are they staying pickleball and tennis?
The pickleball courts at Schumann will continue to be maintained and the stripes will stay there.
Okay, so then they have both.
But I take it there won't be a preference for pickleball first, though. The tennis will still have the. There's tennis courts. If we had the whole idea with getting these pickleballs is to relieve it, because you go there now and those courts are used for pickleball, and people try to be courteous and everything, but they're taking up tennis courts.
How many tennis courts are over there in Schumann?
There's 6 tennis courts. 2 of them have pickleball stripes on them. And, it's kind of a first come, first serve type thing as well. With that, the only group that has a reserved time is the Sebastian Friendly Tennis Club that has a grandfathered in agreement with the city that they have specific times that they have reserved tennis courts over there. But other than that, in reference to the question, it's not specifically going to be only tennis. If a tennis person shows up and somebody's playing pickleball, they've got to wait until the pickleball people clear. They can't just go out there and say, well, it's a tennis court. It's going to be open for general public use the same way it is currently.
All right. Thank you.
Any more questions on pickleball?
Nope.
Okay. And so the last project update I have is the lightning detector. We have a new city attorney. He was just hired as of the council meeting on February 12th. As you can imagine, he's really busy right now. So I'm trying to get in to him and have the discussion with him about the lightning detector. I anticipate being able to do that and have an update for you in the March meeting. But as I said, he just got started. He was approved February 12th, so he's got a lot of catching up to do and a lot more, pressing matters. So.
You have item B.
Item B, sorry. Board opening. We still have one alternate board member position available, so if you know anybody that's interested, feel free to have them apply with the city clerk, and we'll go forward from there.
I had a question. This might go back to the update projects. Are we doing the mulch replacement still then? And George Street was one, and then I think Filbert was going to get more. Are we on a date?
Sorry, I apologize. I didn't provide that update. Filbert has been converted from a sand playground to a mulch playground. That was completed sometime in early January. So that project is done. George Street is getting a new playground this year. So we anticipate the RFP going out sometime middle of March. Then that'll be out for approximately 3 to 4 weeks. We get that back in, and then it will come to you all for approval for the playground before we move forward with purchasing.
And
so
then that'll have the
say.
special needs with that.
So it will have a special needs portion to it. So the one thing you got to remember, George Street is a smaller playground, so it won't per se have something like Creative Playground's going to have when we get to that project. But it will have a special needs component that's accessibility and ensures that special needs can access the playground equipment as well. And with that one, that's when at that time we'll do the mulch at George Street. Creative Playground is mulch. We're getting ready to take on that project as soon as we get pickleball done. I apologize. I pulled my staff to pickleball. They've got to be tired of it by now. But they're out there. They were just out there today laying some sod. So as soon as we get this pickleball open, we'll get mulch down at Creative Playground.
Are there any other playgrounds that are in line to get more mulch or?
Those are the only 3 that we've identified so far. What we will be doing is over the course, that playground mulch is really expensive, so we purchase it in a bulk amount. So once we get the next bulk in, then we'll identify which parts we want to do. I do want to start to look at some of the playgrounds that have rubber mulch and start to convert those back over to the current mulch that we're using now.
They have what mulch?
Rubber.
Oh, the rubber mulch.
Yep. Yeah, we have it in a couple of our playgrounds. So I do want to go ahead and start to eliminate that and convert it back over to the engineered mulch that we're using now.
And then George Street then's going to get a new playground. And what would be coming up after that? I know. I don't need to put you on the spot, but I didn't know if you.
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it looks at after that we're looking at Filbert is definitely a need, and I do not remember the one after that. I apologize.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, you're talking about playgrounds. I've seen it a few places because they're so hot. Seen shade, just square shades, on posts.
Over the equipment?
Over the playground. I mean, you gotta put them high post, but
Yeah, I
is
mean,
that something that we could eventually, maybe someday do?
we can look at it. I will state that, you know, typically that fabric shade is really expensive, and I can only state it because when we looked at the dog park, that when we put those shade structures up that we put over there, we looked at the shade, the canopy shade for over there, and the price was about 5 times as much. So we spent $5,000 to $6,000 per shade structure at the dog park. The price for those would have been $20,000 to $25,000 for each one. So that's the reason we went with those shade structures. But what we can do on these playgrounds, a lot of them now have smaller portions of shade that covers different portions of the playground. So we can look at including some of that once we get our proposals back. Our plan is to go out to playground companies with this proposal and ask them to give us designs and features that will work based on our budget. And once they come back, then we'll have a say with how we're going to design it. And our plan is on the evaluation committee for the playgrounds to have a member of the Parks and Rec board to be on that evaluation committee. So that, and then once the committee decides which manufacturer we go with, then it will be presented to the whole board at that time.
Can we go back, once like a new playground is put up, let's say at George Street, would we be able to go back maybe in a couple years to do this shade structure? I mean, can that be done? So we can budget it in eventually then?
Yeah, we could always add those shade structures to the playgrounds. We would just have to get cost estimates and see
Okay.
exactly
But
what
that's
the cost
something we-
is.
But that's something we can look at in years to come and maybe doing one at a time and,
Correct.
yeah.
It's so hot here, and I've been at the big park in Palm Bay, I think it is, or West Melbourne, and they have a nice splash pad park, and it's not covered at all. And we have ours 10 times better. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we have committee matters. Want to start, Joanne?
Everything is wonderful. Easy Street Park's doing well. Whenever Brian's not busy, then we can probably look again over at the garden park, but that's not like a have-to-do thing, but that's probably the only thing. Everything else is good.
John?
The biggest thing, actually, those rubber pellets, I think we have to be careful when they're at adult parks and children. At the tennis court, we have a beautiful facility for the kids, but all those rubber pellets on the tennis court, somebody just 2 weeks ago tripped and fell on them. I mean, I see it as a real problem. The other thing is about half the lights at the tennis courts are not working. I'm getting beat up on that. Well, they're going to replace all new lights there, and we've complained and complained. We just don't get no response. Are we putting new lights in? I mean,
Yes, sir. So we are aware that there are lights out at Schumann. We've ordered the lights. We have received the LED lights. They're going to be converted over to LED. Our thing now is we've got to get access into there. So with that facility, when it was built, the gates are too small for us to get our lift in. So we have to come through, actually remove portions of the fence to be able to get access to it. So we just had a discussion yesterday. The lights just came in the end of last week. So we're just trying to figure out when we're going to be able to get over there and get those lights changed out. But it will be coming soon.
Is there an approximate time when there'll be lights? Is this 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years?
No. I don't think you're looking that long out. I do have to. So it isn't done within my department. So we do utilize resources to do the lift and that stuff from another department. But I'll get an update tomorrow on when we plan to go over there and do that. Like I said, we did have to have the discussion whether we were going to rent a lift or if we were going to remove the fencing to be able to get our existing lift in there. So our plan is to remove a portion of fencing and get in there. We're going to try to get to as many as we can with the bucket truck, and those that we can't, we'll get the lift in there by removing fencing. But I anticipate next 2 to 3 weeks, I would say, and that may, hopefully it's a lot sooner than that, but I can't state it because it's not within my department.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Renzi?
I just have one question, Brian, on Riverview Park. What's the time frame on that? You said you were going to get in there within a year or so and start revamping the place?
So we are currently looking at the sidewalks in Riverview Park as our first phase of that plan. That plan hasn't formally gone completely to council yet with the renovations, but we do have it scheduled in our budget. We've got some money in a couple different areas where we can redo some sidewalks in there. The discussion currently is happening whether we go back with concrete sidewalks or if we do asphalt sidewalks. Asphalt, we can get a majority of the plan, we believe, done this year if we go that route. So that's the discussion that we're having now. We did come through and overseed with ryegrass this winter, which came in pretty nicely down at the park. So we did that this winter, and we'll continue to do that in the future. When it gets cold in the wintertime, we can always use ryegrass. But that's our plan with that. We'll start with the sidewalks, and like I said, we're just working on getting asphalt pricing and seeing which way we can go.
Did you remove part of the brush along the riverfront there? By the, you know what I'm saying? By the rocks where the benches are? Was that?
We did not do any removal there.
No.
You know, landscapers, they could have gone through and weed eated and cleaned it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But we didn't, the city, we didn't
It seems a
remove anything.
little more cleaned up to me.
Yeah, I mean, typically this time of year, a lot of times, since the grass isn't growing as quickly, the landscaping, because down there we use a contractual landscaper.
Yeah.
So they have time to touch up and do some different things down there. So they could have gone through and done that.
Yeah, it looks good. Looks very nice.
Thank you.
It's the 12th. Oh, of April, okay. Should we ask about that? Are you going to do the Easter party this year?
Yes, we are going to have our Easter egg hunt. It's going to be April 11th. The plan is for it to start at 9 a.m. With the hayride. We'll have the DJ playing. We're going to have pictures with the Easter bunny like we did last year. That'll all start at 9 a.m. At 9:45 a.m., that's when the hayrides and the Easter bunny stop, and then we'll kick off. We'll do the Easter egg hunts properly at 10 o'clock, and so we'll be ready for that. We started purchasing all of our items and getting everything together for that.
It was so fun.
Are we going to put the golden things inside the eggs this year?
Yes, so we are not going to go with glitter eggs. We are going to just put a strip of paper that's signed by someone on our staff, so people can't replicate it. But we are going to have someone sign it and have them in normal Easter eggs, so that there isn't a glitter egg that everybody sees and they all go for it. So we are going to make that change
We're
this year.
getting better every year.
We're trying.
It's like getting right down to it. Good.
So I wanted to say that Shrimp Fest, I believe, is March 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Correct.
So everybody should come out for that.
Yes, and we also have Pelican Island Festival March 7th.
March 7th, okay.
That's coming up as well.
And Little League has started their season. I think everybody should come out to the park and catch some games or a game and support the kids. Other than that, everything's good.
Good.
Oh, what's that?
When are the games played, Joanne?
I think they play every night. I'm not real sure, and I know my nephew's up there playing t-ball tonight.
Oh,
So it's usually Monday through Friday. Yeah. I'm just not sure how many teams they have this year. It used to be 6 days a week, but I don't think it is anymore. Items for the next agenda? Anybody?
Nope.
Well, I just hope we have one so we can come again. So I guess we'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Oh, the next meeting will be?
March 23rd.
Oh, there it is.
second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we'll see everybody at the pickleball opening.
Yeah. You'll have to do that through the week, right?
Yeah, so it'll be a midweek morning time
Morning.
event that we will, as soon as we can get that date settled, I will get it out to you all and out to the public, because I know a lot of people are asking, and we'll get it out to the media as well. All right. Thank you.